Hello, fifth graders. If you remember in the last video, I showed you how to draw these cube forms and apply smooth shading to the first one. We talked about things like a light source, which in the case of this drawing is somewhere way up high in the upper right corner of the drawing. Somewhere way past the upper right corner of the drawing. And based on that information, it helped us decide which side of the cube was going to be the darkest, which side was going to be the lightest, and which side would be in the middle. It also helped us kind of determine the shape and direction of our cast shadow. We really worked on trying to create a smooth gradation with our shading, which means just having the values, the shading, smoothly and gradually change from darker to lighter. We also tried to make it so that our shading was really smooth in general and didn't have a bunch of lines or smudges or streaks. We wanted it to look as consistently shaded as we could. We also tried to draw the cubes in a way that really made them look like actual cubes. So the lines were straight, they're smooth and nice and neat, they went in the correct directions, and the lines that were supposed to be parallel with each other were parallel with each other. In this video, I'm going to walk you through shading the second cube using a different technique called crosshatching. While last time we tried to shade so that we couldn't see any lines in our shading, this time we're using lines to do our shading. Crosshatching involves using lots and lots of sets of parallel lines that you draw and overlap and layer to create the values for your shading. The general idea is that if you want an area to be darker, you add a lot more sets of parallel lines, and if you want an area to be lighter, you add a lot less sets of parallel lines. Okay, that's enough introduction. Now I'm going to show you how I got my drawing to this stage. When we shade this second cube with crosshatching, I would like you to try and match the values that we've already shaded in the first cube. So the areas that you see as dark in the first cube, try to make the same areas dark in the second cube. And the areas that are light in the first cube, make the same areas light in the second cube. I'm starting in one of the areas that will be pretty dark in the end. But I'm not making it as dark as it will be right off the bat. I'm building it up fairly slowly. I start by just making one set of short little lines. All of these lines that are in one set are parallel with each other. So a set might consist of 4 to 6 lines, let's say. There's not really a rule with that, but that's just what you're seeing me do. So a set is 4 to 6 lines, and each one of those lines are parallel with each other. And then I move on to adding a new set of parallel lines that are in a different area of the shape or are overlapping the other set. And as I overlap sets of parallel lines, the overall shape becomes darker and darker. Each set of parallel lines can run in any direction that you choose. It's not a bad idea to have the sets of parallel lines move in lots of different directions. Making the sets of parallel lines move in lots of different directions is one of the things that will help the overall shaded area look consistently shaded, look like it's smooth, even though it's made up of lots and lots of lines. When I'm placing these lines down too, I'm not really doing it randomly. I'm picking the places that I want to be darker. If I see a little gap, I will overlap with a new set of parallel lines. And I'm inspecting the value in the shading that I'm putting down constantly. I'm looking at it and I'm trying to decide, do I want it to be a little bit darker here? Oh, I see that there's a bit of a gap over here, so I'll put a few lines there. And so I'm not doing it randomly. I'm really thinking about where I need to place these lines in order to have the shape have the value and the shading that I'm looking for. I'm also trying to practice careful control of where I put the lines exactly. So when I'm along the edge of a shape or a square, I'm trying to be careful to place it exactly along the edge so that it doesn't go over, but it also fills all the way to the edge of the shape. One of the things that you can do is the squint test. You can squint your eyes just a little bit so that the lines blur just a little bit. And in that way, you can kind of see how consistently smooth your shading is overall. Because when you squint your eyes, it just blurs those lines just a little bit. And then you can kind of see the spots that maybe need a few more lines here or there. Or maybe you can see a spot that you've done too much and there's a line that's too strong compared to the other lines. So the squint test is a really good tool for kind of just getting a quick idea if your shading is looking smooth with these lines. When I'm doing this, I have to remember that each square face on the cube should be a different value. It's receiving a different amount of light based on where the light source is. So I have one side that's supposed to be the darkest, one side that's supposed to be the lightest, and one side that's supposed to be medium. Since I'm making each face of the cube a different value, I should be able to easily and clearly see the edges between the different shapes on the cube. Okay, so now I've launched into the cast shadow, and one of the things about the cast shadow is that the outline shape of the cast shadow shouldn't be as crisp and clear as the edges of the cube, because the cast shadow is not really a physical object. It's just an area on the surface around the cube that is darker than the other areas. So the edges feel a little bit fuzzier than the edges of the actual object. So basically what I'm saying is we shouldn't see a clear, bold outline for the cast shadow. I'm getting close to the end of this process, and some of the questions that I want to ask myself as I'm wrapping this up are, can I see the different surfaces and faces of things clearly? Can I see the different shapes clearly? Should I make this part a little darker than that part? Are there any little holes or gaps that I should fill in? I also kind of want to encourage you all to not be okay with making your work just okay. I really want you to strive for making something that's of high quality. So really work to make it as good and neat and pretty and effective as you can. Like really make it look like it is a solid cube occupying real space. I know it's just a cube, but if you do it right, you can really bring that cube to life. Okay, so now it's your turn. I would like you to use the paper that you created before and follow along with this video to do what I've done. Good luck.